This old, scratched 20 centimes coin looks like something you'd toss in a junk drawer, but one nearly identical piece shocked collectors when it sold for over $180,000. First coin point 1976 20 centimes coin might look like nothing more than a dull, lightweight piece of pocket change, especially if it's dark, scratched, or covered in grime. Most people wouldn't even bend down to pick one up off the sidewalk. But here's what almost nobody realizes: certain 1976 20 centimes coins struck under the name of Francis have quietly sold for jaw-dropping prices when the right details line up. And the shocking part? The most valuable examples don't look shiny. They don't look perfect. In fact, some of them look downright ugly. Let's slow down and take a close look at what makes the 1976 issue so special. In 1976, 20 centimes coins were still circulating heavily. They were small, lightweight, and commonly used in everyday transactions. Millions of people handled them daily. That means surviving examples today are often worn smooth. The high points of the design are usually flattened. The lettering can look thin. The edges may feel rough. Some even have dark toning that makes them look almost dirty. That's exactly why so many rare pieces slip through unnoticed. Now here's where things get interesting. The first thing you want to check on your 1976 coin is the overall sharpness of the design, especially around the portrait and the lettering. On valuable examples, collectors have found coins where certain details appear unusually bold compared to the rest of the strike. This happens because of subtle minting variations. You don't need to understand the complicated technical side. Just look for contrast. If the main design elements look deeper or stronger than usual, that's a clue. Next, examine the date, 1976, very closely. Are the numbers evenly spaced? Do any of them look slightly thicker, thinner, or tilted? Some rare 1976 pieces show minor date irregularities that casual users would never notice. A slightly doubled edge on one of the numbers. A faint shadow-like outline. A number that looks just a touch misaligned. Under normal light, these can be easy to miss. But tilt the coin slowly. Let the light move across the surface. If you see what looks like a ghost image next to the numbers, you may be looking at a double-die variety, and that's when collectors start paying attention. Now let's talk about the edge. Most people never inspect the edge of a coin. But serious buyers always do. On certain high-value 1976 examples, the edge reading or texture appears inconsistent. It may look uneven in spacing. Some areas may seem sharper while others look worn or flat, even though the coin itself doesn't show matching wear on the faces. That inconsistency can indicate a striking variation that slipped past quality control. Here's another simple clue anyone can check. Look at the spacing between the lettering and the rim. On some valuable pieces, the design sits slightly off-center. We're not talking about dramatic errors that look obviously crooked. Sometimes it's subtle. The gap between the rim and the letters may appear slightly thicker on one side. That small shift can mean the coin was struck slightly off-center, a detail that dramatically increases collector interest. And here's the twist that surprises most people. Condition matters, but not in the way you think. Yes, flawless coins can be valuable. But when it comes to certain 1976 20 centimes coins, even worn examples have sold for impressive amounts if they carry the right minting quirks. That means you should not dismiss a coin just because it looks old, scratched, or dark. In fact, some collectors prefer coins with natural aging because it proves authenticity. Artificially cleaned coins often lose value. So if yours looks dull but original, that's actually a good sign. Another overlooked factor is metal composition variation. During the mid-1970s, slight changes in metal mixture sometimes occurred due to production adjustments. Most coins weigh within a predictable range. But if your 1976 coin feels slightly heavier or lighter than expected, that's worth investigating. A small digital scale can reveal differences that point toward a rare planchette variation. And when a coin is struck on the wrong metal stock or a slightly different alloy batch, the value can skyrocket. Collectors have paid astonishing sums for coins that look completely ordinary at first glance, until someone weighs them. Let's talk about surface texture. Run your finger gently across the coin. Does it feel unusually grainy in certain areas? Does one section appear smoother than the rest? Occasionally, rare strike-through errors occur when debris interferes during minting. The result can be faint streaks, thin lines, or slightly sunken patches. These are not post-circulation damage. They are mint-created features, and that difference is everything. If the marks look embedded under the surface rather than scratched on top, that's a powerful clue. Now imagine this scenario. You're sorting through old coins from a drawer. You find a small 1976 20 centimes piece. It looks worn. The color is uneven. Maybe you almost toss it aside. But you remember to check the date. You tilt it under a light. Suddenly you notice a slight doubling on one of the numbers. You inspect the edge and see uneven spacing. You weigh it and discover it's slightly off from the standard weight. That's when your pulse starts to quicken. Because those small details, invisible to most people, are exactly what separate a common coin from a collector's treasure. Auction records have shown that rare mint variations from this era can command 5-figure and even 6-figure prices when certified and authenticated. And the most surprising part: many of those coins were found in ordinary circulation. They weren't locked in vaults. They were sitting in jars. That's why this matters so much for viewers like you. Especially if you grew up handling coins daily. You understand wear. You understand age. And you likely have jars, tins, or boxes filled with pieces you haven't examined closely in years. The 1976 20 centimes coin proves that value isn't always obvious. It hides in small details. It hides in imperfections. Next coin. The 1977 20 centimes coin is the kind of piece most people overlook without a second thought. It's small. It's lightweight. It often looks dull, faded, even dirty from decades of circulation. If you found one today in a jar of mixed foreign coins, you might assume it's worth nothing more than face value. But here's what shocks collectors. Certain 1977 examples have sold for staggering amounts, not because they were shiny or perfect, but because of tiny, almost invisible details that most people never think to check. And the majority of valuable ones looked completely ordinary at first glance. Let's start with what makes 1977 special. By the late 1970s, production standards were high, but not flawless. Large quantities were struck quickly to meet circulation demand. Whenever coins are produced in volume, small variations can slip through. Most are minor. A few become extremely collectible. And in rare cases, those subtle differences turn into 5-figure discoveries. The first thing to examine on your 1977 coin is the overall alignment of the design. Hold the coin upright and study how the lettering sits around the rim. Does it appear perfectly centered? Or does one side look slightly closer to the edge? On some rare 1977 pieces, the strike is subtly off-center. We're not talking about dramatic errors where the design is half missing. These are slight shifts, just enough that the spacing feels uneven when you really look. Collectors love subtle off-center strikes because they are easy to miss in circulation. If your coin shows uneven spacing between the letters and the rim, that's your first clue. Next, inspect the numbers in the date very carefully. Focus on the 1977. The two sevens should look crisp and identical. But on certain rare varieties, one of the sevens appears slightly thicker, or you may see a faint shadow along the edge of a number. Tilt the coin under a strong light and rotate it slowly. If you see what looks like a second outline hugging the numbers, you may be looking at a double die variety. And here's the key: doubling from the mint looks flat and part of the design. It's not raised like damage. It doesn't look scratched. It looks like the design itself was stamped twice, slightly offset. That tiny detail can mean the difference between a coin worth cents and a coin worth thousands. Now let's talk about surface texture. Many 1977 coins look worn today. That's normal. But some valuable examples show unusual surface characteristics that were created during minting, not from circulation. Look for thin raised lines that seem embedded in the metal. Or small areas where the texture looks slightly rippled. These can be signs of a strike-through error, when debris or foreign material briefly interfered during the striking process. To an untrained eye, these marks might look like damage. But collectors know the difference. Mint-created errors have a distinct appearance. They sit within the metal rather than cutting into it. If the mark looks part of the coin rather than carved after the fact, that's when you should pay attention. Another powerful clue is weight. Most people never weigh their coins. But serious collectors do. If you have a small digital scale, place your 1977 coin on it. Compare their weight to the standard specification. Even a small difference can indicate the coin was struck on a slightly incorrect planchette. In rare cases, coins from this era were struck on metal blanks intended for different denominations or slightly different alloy batches. When that happens, the value can explode. There have been documented cases across various coin series where a small denomination coin struck on the wrong metal sold for life-changing money. The reason is simple: these pieces were never supposed to exist. And sometimes they only reveal themselves decades later. Now consider the edge of the coin. Run your finger along it. Look closely at the texture. Does it feel consistent all the way around? Or are there sections that look sharper or flatter than others? Uneven edge details paired with a normal-looking face can signal a striking inconsistency that slipped through inspection. It's subtle. But subtle is where the money hides. Let's talk about color.